shall begin today. To celebrate, this is episode 51, but episode 50 happened over on the Warhammer page, and so just to give this location of streams the same sort of celebration, I decided to paint something large, and the obvious choice is therefore a dragon. So here he is, he's primed white, and yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I don't really have a plan yet as to what this dragon's going to look like. I'm starting with Blood Angels Red contrast paint, though. And yeah, we're just going to see where that takes me, basically. So I'm going to do his underbelly, at least in red. I think I might do his wings in red, also. He's got these... He's got a couple different patterns on him. So I'm not sure what exactly I'm going to do for each individual one. I think basically the scales are going to be one color. These like actual scale looking things. And everything else is going to be a different color. But I'm not sure yet. The painting is the show. Oh, we opened the curtains on time. Yes, correct. Open the curtains on time, and then instead of like, you know, some intro music playing or something, we just sit in silence and wait for me to return from my computer. It's basically how this works. Wow, red, how original. Answer me this. Would you have said the same thing no matter what color I picked? Except obviously without the red part. Wow, pink. So original. Wow, pink green. How original. Well, yellow. How original. And he's not going to be all red. He's going to be different colors. We're just starting with red because it's a nice color. I think we're going to do, you know, a lot of the time, from what I have seen in D&D and other role-playing games, dragons are typically like, they're a thing. They're like a green dragon, or a red dragon, or a metallic dragon, or whatever. So I'm going to, I think, do multiple primary colors, basically. So I think this dragon's going to be red and blue. I think that'll look cool. And I think I might make the blue a metallic blue, just to mix it up a little bit. I've had this model for a while, just hanging around. Never painted it, obviously, but I think it's one of the, officially, it's one of the Pathfinder dragons from the like pre-primed set that they're in. I can't remember specifically which one it is, though. It could possibly be the like air dragon, maybe might be what it's called, but now I honestly don't remember. It's been a long time since I bought it. Seafoam green. Okay, I'd be willing to explore seafoam green. It is a nice red, though. Yeah, it is. It's a very nice red. I'd be willing to explore seafoam green. The problem... So starting with red, like I have, the problem with going into anything even resembling green is you automatically get the Christmas look. But seafoam green might be enough of a bluish tint to dissuade people from thinking that it's a Christmas dragon. A little late for that. Yes, if Dylan was suggesting, how about instead of red, we go for a seafoam green, that would Then yes, you're correct. It is a little late for that. I had assumed he was suggesting instead of the blue, go for a seafoam green. But, knowing Dylan like I do, he was probably suggesting that I start over. That would be an excellent stream. To just get a good chunk of color on the miniature. And then just be like, nope, hate it. Take the camera outside with me, reprime the miniature. Stick the camera on the miniature while the primer dries while I just go off and eat lunch or something. Come back, start again. Riveting content, that would be. Absolutely riveting. So I'm going to do... Yeah, I've decided. Everything on this dragon is going to start at red, unless it's the scales. And then obviously we'll get... Many things will get changed in color later, down the line. So that he's not just two colors. But for now, everything is going to be red. And this is something to keep in mind if you're painting a large miniature like this. I talked about it last time. No, that was on Friday. That wasn't the last time I was on this channel. Last Friday, I painted a large tree dude, an ent sort of thing for Warhammer. And I talked about the difference between a large scale model and a larger scale model and a larger scale model. It's confusing. What I mean is, for instance, this dragon is the same scale as this wizard. They're not the same size, but they're the same scale, meaning a foot in his world is the same as a foot in his world. As opposed to, say, if you had a bigger model, I don't have one on hand, unfortunately. I really should get one, so when I talk about this, I can show it. For instance, if you have a bigger model, but that is human size, a foot in their world is, twice the size of a foot in this guy's world. So the difference between painting a large scale model and a larger scale model is different. But for something like this, which is a larger model, but in the same scale, painting a lot of him a single color and then going back and changing some things is a good way to do it, because then he can be done practically whenever you want. Like if I color everything in a color, then I can just go back and add detail back to anything. Like say I'm painting this whole thing red, then I can paint the teeth, I can paint the eyes here, and then I could be done if I wanted. The dragon could be red, he's got white teeth and black eyes, done. But if you just go in and paint what you exactly want to be red, you're then stuck. Like say I was very careful on this and didn't paint these like horns here. I didn't paint those red. I didn't paint the teeth red. I didn't paint the eyes red. Then you're stuck with, you've spent the same amount of time or more, to be honest, because you were being careful on the model, but you have all this primer showing on the model. So you can't be done. You can't just leave primer exposed on a model and say, yeah, I'll be done here. But you could, I guess, but everyone will be able to tell you didn't finish the paint job. You don't have a completed model. But doing it like this, we may not have a very detailed model when we're done, but we will have a fully painted model. So that's something to keep in mind. And it works well for things like this, as opposed to if we were painting a human that was just physically bigger in our world. Because the physically bigger human is going to have just as many details as a smaller dude. Oftentimes, big things like this, things that are meant to be bigger in the scale of the miniatures, are not as heavily detailed in terms of unique details. This guy has a scale pattern that's quite nice, but in terms of unique details, there are not a lot of them. Santa Worm brings warmth to all the villages near his lair. Good luck priming outside right now. Yeah. I have a covered porch. There's a lot of... This shouldn't really surprise anyone, because I sort of like to be contrarian for the sake of contrarianness a lot of the time. But also just because I'm willing to take the risk. I'll just go ahead and say I prime in the rain. I'll prime in humidity. I'll prime in a snowstorm. I'm not really concerned. Obviously not physically in the rain or in the snow, but on my covered porch while it's doing those things, I'll just go ahead and prime. I know that some bad things can happen if you do that. Your primer can dry too quickly on the way to the model. Your primer can not dry on the model and cause problems, and there's all sorts of stuff. But also, at the end of the day, sometimes a can just acts up on you. So I just risk it, and if something bad happens, I'll strip the model, swear off doing it for a week, and then just go back and do it again, because it's just how I operate. But yes, it's the generally accepted rule that you should not prime outside when there's some adverse weather conditions. OBS, you're either true contrarian or out in the rain, or you're chickening out with the rest of us. I mean, it's very often that I will just go out anyway and prime it. Get soaked or nothing. I should try that one day just for fun. Get some cheap models and prime one literally in the rain and see what happens. Would you prime in a tree? Would you prime with a few? Would you prime wet or dry? Would you prime for a lie? Dr. Seuss in the chat. I'm not even sure why you're not painting in the rain right now. Mostly for the audio quality, to be honest. If I wasn't streaming, I'd be sitting out in the thunderstorm right now painting away. But I contain myself for you guys just so you don't have the constant noise coming through the mic. So you're welcome, basically. I'm doing it for y'all. Otherwise, I'd be right out there. If I get thirsty, I just hold my mouth open and look up, you know. It's a great time. But yeah, now I really want to do that is to, like, obviously I'm not going to be able to prime a guy in a snowstorm because it's Georgia. But it'd be funny to prime a guy in the rain, prime a guy, like, in super humid weather. I'm trying to think of other conditions you could prime someone in. I don't know. Prime them, I don't know, like put them in the grass on a morning with tons of dew. I don't know. It'd just be interesting. I have a feeling, unless it were absolutely pouring with rain, if it were just sort of drizzling, that a primed miniature in the rain would come out almost identically to a normally primed miniature. You'd basically just have to get unlucky and have a large droplet go somewhere to make the primer run. But I could be completely wrong. I mean, now I'm going to try it for sure. Because I want to know. I will 3D print you a cheap model if you want to do it. I will gladly do that. I also have, like, tons of so back when the Bones miniatures came out, which are Reaper's super cheap miniatures, when they originally came out with those, they're like the bendy plastic ones. Like, this guy is a Bones figure. Where's the light? That's like Bones figure. I've got tons of them. Before they came out in retail, they released a Kickstarter where you could get every single Bones miniature in Series 1, and then they did a Series 2 later for $100. And it was like 250 miniatures or something. So I got those, and those would be what I would use. But it would be interesting to do a 3D printed model in the rain, a resin model in the rain, a plastic model in the rain, a metal model in the rain, to see if any difference was there. Or with tons of stew? What? Is this more of the rhyme from earlier? Yeah, oh yeah, it rhymes with few. Alright, gotcha. It would make for a fun video, too, because I could just be out there, like, in a pouring rainstorm with the camera, priming a miniature. Does he have... This guy's kind of confusing because he's got... His scales sort of just blend in with his skin at some points. Ooh, still wet over there. This miniature is also a problem because he doesn't fit on any of my paint handles. I didn't think... Well, his base is very thin, so I couldn't tap a hole into the bottom to fit on just the screw portion of my paint handle. And he won't fit in any of the clamps on the paint handles. I have to just hold on to him manually. Which, paint handles are a funny thing. I honestly couldn't tell you what a paint handle improves about my painting experience. But I know it does. I'm sure it's probably something to do with ergonomics. Like position of my hand or something. But I don't feel myself noticing a difference. I just know that I like painting with a paint handle more than without one. It's probably hand position. Like subconsciously realizing that like a tight hand position to hold onto a base versus holding onto the handle is easier. I'm not sure. But you're priming in the stew, get it together. Maybe the stew is thick enough to be primer stew. Well, maybe. I'm not going to do that video though. I'm not priming miniatures with food. I will I will prime miniatures in the elements. I'm not going to prime miniatures with food. I have to like send some miniatures to my dad and have him prime them in the snow and send them back to me, or just film himself doing it and we can do a tandem video there. Alright, there's one wing done. I think his feet are probably... Yeah, he's got... I'll do that other wing in a second, but he's got down here stuff that is not scale. It's just skin. And I am going to do the scales in a metallic so I can paint over top of them in a couple places and not be super worried about it. Because I'll cover it with the non-contrast paint. If I was going to go over the scales with a contrast paint, I could not be this messy because 90% of contrast paints will not cover over this red. A couple patches of scales here and there, so that'll be interesting. Wow, talk about non-committal. What am I not committing to? You mean sending them to my dad instead of me doing it myself? Is that what you're saying? I'm gonna go find a... Oh, not priming in food, I gotcha. I'm gonna go find a food primed channel. If you find a food primed channel, I'll shut down my stream. I will call it a day. Call it a life. And be done. Done streaming miniature painting forever. If you find a full channel devoted to priming miniatures in food and then fully painting them. So it's just... I'm going to do the feet and legs in the red, and then the hands, and then just the other wing, and then we'll move on to the second color finally. Every now and again we paint a miniature on stream that has quite a lot of the same color for a long time. And I always forget that streams like that probably aren't the most interesting thing to watch. Because not a lot of progress is being made all the time. Just looking. I think that's scale. Maybe not, though. I think this is probably skin. I'll leave that as scale, why not? Goes to start a food farming channel. Can the dragon get a tattoo? Milk paint is a thing, yo. Yikes. Can the dragon get a tattoo? Yeah, I'll put a tattoo of a girl on the dragon. Can be the protagonist in the sequel. I actually don't know if the girl in that movie is the protagonist even. I've never seen the movie, so. Dragon with a lady tattoo, yep. There you go. Sounds like a book than a movie. It does, you know, that's funny. I have a funny story about the girl with the dragon tattoo. I was at a convention working for Galactic, and there were a lot of cosplayers at this convention, and I'm not very well versed on a lot of the things people cosplay as, and so a lot of the stuff, unless it was like Star Wars or Marvel or something like that, I was pretty clueless. And so I always got excited when I figured out a cosplay that wasn't just like a Marvel or something. I was like, oh, I know what that is, blah, blah, blah. So I went up to this woman, and I was like, oh, cool, girl with the dragon tattoo. That wasn't who she was. She was the really angry teenager from Deadpool. I don't remember her name. Her Teenage Warhead or something? Megasonic Teenage Warhead, something like that. She was her. And they sort of have like the same haircut, at least they do in my head. And I didn't even think about Deadpool, so live, laugh, fire tattoo. I'll think about it. Yeah, so angry teenager from Deadpool and girl with the dragon tattoo. In my head, they look identical. Thankfully, that woman was very nice about it, and she probably was saying in her head, you're an idiot, but just very politely corrected me. And we moved about our days. Her making fun of me for the rest of the day, I'm sure. I think that's all the red. Oh, no, except this giant wing. Then it will be all the red after this wing. Then we'll do the silver. Then, depending on how dry the silver is, by the time we finish the silver, we'll put the blue on. And then we'll go on to details. Or if the silver is not dry, we will move on to details and then put the blue on. Stay still. This dragon is it's a bendier type of plastic they use. More flexible type of plastic. So he's a little wiggly on his base. I was planning on doing this guy's base today on stream also. But then we don't have any cotton balls. I could have sworn I had some, but I was going to do him sort of ascending up through some clouds. And I was just going to use cotton balls because it's easy. But, we don't have any cotton balls. So, that'll have to be a different day. Probably will be off stream, to be honest. That base will not take very long at all. Be interesting to do it as just a basing video on the YouTube channel, though. It's not a base that really needs to be used often or should be used often, but I think as a one-off base it will work fine. I think an army would look weird all based like that, but maybe not. Maybe it would look fine. Alright, we're coming to an end on the red. So excited. But, like I was talking about earlier, 70% of the dragon is now done, essentially. Could be done if you wanted to stop after you do the remaining 30%, so not bad. All about the base. Yeah, there you go. That would be a good name for a series, actually. Probably get sued or cease and desisted, but would be a good name for a series about basing. Basing video? Yeah, what's wrong with basing video? A video about basing? Sounds based. Wow. Okay. Well, there it is. Alright. Red, aside from a couple little spots that we'll probably tidy up as we go, is done. Nope. There's a sort of a big spot I missed there and there. Alright. There we go. Song title is spelled differently? Go for it? That's true, I guess. Interesting. I guess that's what's that term? The term that lets you use someone else's work. It might not even fall into that because, like you said, it's spelled completely differently. Creative. Dang, what is that? There's some semi-legal or legal term that allows you to use someone else's work as long as it's transformative. But I've completely blanked out on what that word is. Creative license? No, creative... I don't know. It's gone. Someone in the chat will know, but it's gone from my brain. So now I'm going to paint the scales, and I'm going to paint them in silver. Fair use. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, fair use. But yeah, I guess if it's not even spelled the same, then it wouldn't even be fair use. It would just be... I don't even know what that would be. I guess legally it would be nothing. It would just be allowed. That's what it would be. But it's not under that even because you're in a totally different field of endeavor. Oh, I guess that's true. If I was making a song, maybe, called All About That Bass, and it was a song about miniature basing, maybe that would be fair use. But because I'm not trying to release a competitive product, basically, then it would just be... It wouldn't fall under anything other than allowed. Creative, get the content and don't get caught. Yeah, basically. Is the legal term. If you were singing, yeah. Yeah, if I made a... If I was singing a song about... Called All About That Bass, about miniature basing. Which I'm not going to do. Or if you were using her image or voice, yeah. thing about it is right now on the YouTube channel, I feel like I can kind of do whatever because like I'm not allowed to monetize my videos anyway. So like, okay, if someone wants to claim copyright, they can just monetize the video, I guess. Any ads that play on the video, they'll get the money for, but doesn't affect me in any way. I think I probably still won't try to test any major record labels copyright, just in case. Scales are kind of annoying to paint. Your brush doesn't get in all the nooks and crannies easily. And there's fewer and fewer places to hold on to this guy now that he's got a bunch of red paint on him. But also this blue, or this silver rather, does not need to be 100% complete coverage. It just needs to cover over the parts of the red. Like, I'm going to cover most of the white with it, but I just have to make sure that it covers over the spots of the red that spilled over, since we're going to cover it with blue anyway. But nobody's going to mistake your dulcet tones for Adele. I don't think that was Adele that sung that song. Wasn't that, what's her name? I've forgotten her name. Amazing free basing. There's your channel name. Alright, thanks. Originally, I had planned to, I made a couple basing videos, and I had planned on releasing one every weekend. Then I realized I wasn't that creative. I couldn't come up with a concept that quickly and execute on it. So that idea ended, and now they're just sort of, whenever I come up with something, I add one. And I should say, like, there are so many basing videos on the internet. I could just go make my own version of, all sorts of things that are on the internet. But that wasn't really the point. The point was, like, if I have a unique take on something, I'll show it. So they're still not going to mistake you for Adele. No, you're not wrong. You are not wrong. Megan Trainor. Yep, that was it. Greg is so basic. Great title. That would be a great title. Or you could be as basic as... Nah, it's a mouthful. I was going to say you could be as basic as Greg. Or... I don't know. I can't remember what I called it. I called it something. Like, there's 2 episodes of basing tutorials up on the YouTube channel. I just don't remember what I called it. Someone should go look. Find out what I called those 2 episodes that I made. Gregory's Freebasing Adventures. Yeah, maybe. I definitely called it something, though. I probably called it something super lame and boring. Like, base tutorials or something terrible. But I honestly don't remember. All right. getting close to all the scales being done. I'm just going to give my paint another shake real quick. Especially metallic paint, you want to shake it fairly often if you're going to be using it for a long period of time, because it will start to separate out. I'm like racking my brain trying to remember what I called my basing tutorials, and I cannot remember what they are. I feel like it was some like pun or something or joke based on the word base, but I cannot remember. Alright, there's more scales under here. Let's get those real quick. Oh, I called them the basics of basing. That's what I called it. Because I was doing really simple stuff that I thought could be replicated, which is sort of my theme. I think the basics of basing are a fine name. Is a fine name. I don't think it's blow people out of the water with creativity name, but it's good enough. And like I said earlier, going back to the silver, I don't need to cover every single little inch of the white, because I'm going to go over this all with the blue. And so that will hide any of the white that's under there. I just need to make sure that I cover all the red that leaked out onto the scales. Needs a black spot on the belly for the missing scale, so Bard put the black heroin. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he does. He doesn't really have scales modeled on his stomach, which is the problem. But I could put a little square of black in there. Not a problem. After I add this blue, he's not really going to look like Smaug anymore, but maybe he's Smaug's brother. Maybe it's congenital, that scale being missing. I think Gideon? Is that his name? I think Gideon is supposed to have knocked the scale loose. I think that's the actual story, but maybe that was just Gideon pumping up his own legend. Maybe it's just congenital and he just missed. Gideon might not even be his name, by the way, so any like mega Tolkien fan is yelling at the camera like, "You idiot! It's not Gideon, it's blah blah blah." You can combine it with Woody's idea and make it Gregory's basics of freebasing, and then we can watch the FBI take you away on live stream. Perfect! No painting genitals. Lovely. I have... Let's see, I can safely say I have never painted genitals on a model. Ever. I've painted breasts on a model, but I have never gotten a model that had genitals modeled on it. Almost done with the silver. Moving right along. Isn't he a character in NCIS? Gideon? Yeah, he might be. But you said congenital, not genital. Yes. I did say congenital. That's correct. I could have just said hereditary, I guess. That would have sort of made sense in my context anyway. Alright, so it's just this arm. And then the two little wing bits. And then the silver's done. And I think it's just slightly too wet to go onto the blue yet. So I'm going to go on to some of the details. And then, oh, there's a line of white right here. Genitals for figures, hashtag new norm. I'm sure there are many with them with genitals modeled, both male and female. I just have never purchased one. I'm trying to think if I've even ever... No, I have seen them. I just realized. But I've never purchased one. Warhammer has never, as far as I'm aware, I say never. I shouldn't say that. As far as I am aware, Games Workshop has never released a model with genitals modeled on the miniature. I could be mistaken, though. Back in the 90s, they did release some weird stuff, so... Alright, just this little bit here. Then I'm going to get my Rakarth flesh, and I'm going to go in and do all the teeth and claws and sort of wing spikes and all that stuff in that color. And then by then our blue should be, or our silver should be dry, and so we can add the blue. And then we'll go on from there. But with Tyranids, how can you say that they don't have genitals showing? Get some stick-on genitals, yeah. I'll work on that. That's true. The Tyranids could. That's, I guess, true with most of the Xenos races. You don't really know. Alright, so the silver is done. Just checking. Yes, the silver is done. So I'm going to get Rakarth flesh now. And, yep, Rakarth flesh. Oh, this was, if you're keeping track, this was Ironbreaker, by the way. I'm not reading that comment out loud. Alright. So all these like spikes in the wings and stuff, I'm going to paint those this color. I'm going to get the teeth in this color. The nails and stuff in this color. Those degenerate Eldari. Yeah, that's true. They might. Alrighty. In the interest of time, I have just this second decided I'm not going to do all the wing spikes in this color. I'm just going to do the ones that look like they could be nails. So I was originally going to do all these lines in this color, but I'm not. I'm just going to do the end spikes here. So all this stuff. That'll save time, and I think we'll look fine. So... the Farseer with no helm is flaunting their nasal genitalia on the battlefield. Great. I'm going to get a message from Keith after the end of the stream. Please refrain from ever streaming on the main Galactic channel again. Thanks. Oh boy. I prefer the color Steelbreaker, but Ironbreaker is an okay second option. I'll keep that in mind. Thanks for your feedback. This is why I like Greg's channel. He's not waxing poetic about all these subtle techniques to achieve perfection. I'm not aiming at Golden Demon, but it'll look okay. It's totally realistic. Yeah, exactly. I appreciate the compliment. I've said it a few times, the quote that I have sort of taken to heart recently. I sort of took the idea to heart before realizing the quote was a thing. But it's a quote from, I actually don't know the origin. I know that Vince Venturella, who's another painting YouTuber, he got it from his wife. And I don't know if his wife came up with it, or if his wife got it from somewhere. But he said, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. Or the done. Don't let perfection be the enemy of the done, I think. Now, I'm probably misquoting it. But anyway, the idea is something that you try to perfect will never be finished. But if you just get something done, then it's done. Like, you have a finished thing. Finished products are always better than unfinished products. Now, I'm sure that does not hold up in some situations. But in miniature painting, a fully painted miniature always will look better than an unfully painted miniature. If there is primer showing on a miniature, no matter how well the other parts are painted, the fully painted miniature will look better. And so, like I talked about this on Monday, is that when contrast paint came out, at first I was like, it's not really for me, maybe. Not a big fan. But then when I started getting things done, I suddenly realized that I didn't care as much about quality. Unless it was a commission for someone, obviously, and they cared about quality. But for my own personal painting, having something done brought just as much, if not more, joy of painting to me than taking longer and painting something nicer. And I think that holds true for a lot of people, to be honest. Even if they're really, really good painters, I think seeing a fully painted model unit army gives them more, or as much or more joy than the quality of the paint job on their fully painted thing. You can't claim the 10 points with one epically painted mini and 60 in gray primer. Exactly. If you're playing 40k, you get 10 points right off the bat if your army's fully painted. One golden demon quality miniature and 60 unpainted ones will get you 0 of those 10 points. But 61 fully painted models that are around battle ready or low parade ready? Absolutely. And also, they sort of feed off each other. The super high fidelity, really strong Golden Demon level paint job doesn't make that gray primer look any better. But 60 guys who are decently painted, all lined up next to each other, they automatically all are better than they were individually. They're way more impressive as a group, even though their paint jobs are not as good. When they're all lined up, ready to go, it's a way better experience, viewing experience. When we did that big Apocalypse game last year, I took more joy from bringing a full company of Marines painted in 4 colors than from anything else that day. No edge highlighting, no fancy basing, just enough to look good from 3 feet, and they look great on the tabletop. Yep, exactly. The Celestial Lions, right? That's who that was? The gold and blue guys. They looked infinitely better being all painted to 4 colors than they would have if you had spent 30 hours painting your Gravis Captain and then everyone else was in primer. And the obvious like counterpoint to this is, well, if you spend tons of time on your miniatures, eventually you'll get an army done, and that army will look way better than your battle ready army. And that isn't an incorrect statement. However, in that time that you took to paint one army and it looks phenomenal, someone who just says this is good enough may have painted 12 armies. And I would like to submit into evidence Exhibit A, Landon Johnson, who seems to paint, I don't know if he's watching. He was watching earlier. He may not be anymore. He seems to paint an army a month, practically. And they're not winning Golden Demon. Like, they're absolutely not. He knows that. He's not attempting for them to win Golden Demon. But if you're turning out 2,000 fully painted points a month, there's not much you can say against that. Like, a fully painted army a month is just drop the mic, move on. You've lost the argument. Oh, are the Celestial Lions a successor of the Imperial Fists? I did not know that. I was not aware. Alright, so that's all the... Nope, I missed this foot over here. These 4 nails, and then this Rakarth flesh will be done. Do you have a 5th nail? Nope. My theory is that I have a full company of playable Celestial Lions and I'm taking 5 of them at a time and adding edge highlighting and better detailing and basing. Eventually, I will have an army that every model looks good. Yeah, that's a super excellent way to do it, is to get everyone to a point that can be put on the table and get you those 5 points, or 10 points as we were talking about, and then slowly build them up. And then that entire time, you have a fully painted army. Fully painted army, essentially. They're not maybe fully painted to the quality you're eventually going to end at, but they're a fully painted army until then. So, all right, I'm moving on now to the Talisar Blue, and I'm going to put this over all the silver on the miniature. And I'm not going to use this brush to do it. Thought I was going to use that brush to do it, but I'm not. I'm going to use this brush. There hasn't been a lot of... I haven't given a ton of tips out this episode, but I will say, talking about brush size, always use a bigger brush than you think you should. It doesn't hold up all the time, as most of my tips don't. However, I would say 9 times out of 10, novice to journeyman painters, people who've been painting for not a long time or who are recently new to it but not experts, paint with smaller brushes than they should be because they think it's giving you precision and stuff, and it is giving you precision. But a lot of the time when you're painting, you don't need as much precision as you think. And so all you're doing is slowing yourself down. If you're painting like a Space Marine's armor with the same size brush that you would paint someone's face with, get a bigger brush. Just like think about the brush size you would use and then like add 2 to it. So if you think you need a 00 for this, use a 1. Or if you think you need a 1, use a 3. And obviously that won't always work. If you think you're going to need a 000 to do the pupils on an eyeball, don't go get a 0. You will mess your pupils up. But in a lot of situations, the adage of add 2 sizes to whatever brush you're looking for works. I think a lot of people will get into the habit of using a single brush for everything. I know I did for quite a while. I would just use the same brush for every single thing, and I then realized that I could have been picking up a much larger brush for a lot of situations, and it would have done me a lot of good. Something to keep in mind as you continue painting. It's not even about the 10 points as I started before that rule existed. It's better immersion, and the battle picks look so much better. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Although I will cheerfully take my 10 points. Yes, exactly. Are you looking for the word amateur? Novice? I was trying to think of the word that novice or amateur. I mean, amateur works. Amateur, I think, gets used in a negative context, sort of. And so, like, by strict definition, if you are not being paid to do something, you are, by definition, an amateur. You are not a professional. I mean, I'm looking for the word that describes someone who is not new to the thing, but who is not an expert, which I guess, by definition, amateur does fit, but I think amateur gets used wrong, and so people can think I mean different things. Like, an amateur could have 10 years of experience, by definition. It's not about how new you are to something, it's about how you're practicing your skill. And so amateur is the correct word, I guess. All that to say, I just think that people may misinterpret what I mean if I say amateur. Journeyman, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I used that word earlier, and I thought that's what it was, but wasn't sure. Journeyman in my head is experienced, but not at like the peak of performance. We use journeyman a lot when talking about the NFL. Journeyman quarterbacks are quarterbacks who have been around a while, but have never been the guy for a team. They've always been like the second string, or a team picks them up when their first string is hurt, or things like that. So that's what I think about journeyman. Someone who's experienced at their craft, but not at the peak of their craft. Don't make me get the word, lady. Yeah. time is it? How long is this? Oh, 2:02. All right, so we're going to have to wrap this up pretty soon here. So I'm going to finish this blue. And then I'm going to do his eyes. So those need to be done. I'm going to do the inside of his mouth. Basically, I'm just going to focus on his head for a minute. Do a bunch of those details. And then I think I'll dry brush the red. And then we will call it a stream. I was an electrician. Journeyman is a guy who has some experience, does decent work, but yeah, not peak. Yeah, that's what I think I'm mixing up sort of two branches of words, because amateur and professional, in my mind, are purely, I think by definition, not necessarily in my mind, purely by definition, means if you are a professional, you are being paid for your work. If you are an amateur, you are not. And so that isn't really relevant to you could be a professional journeyman or you could be an amateur journeyman, I think. In that sense. So, I think I'm just crossing the streams there of two types of descriptors that don't fit in the same tree, really. And that, especially the whole, like, professional journeyman or amateur journeyman or amateur expert or that sort of thing. A journeyman is a professional, but you can have amateurs who are really good at something. Oh, okay, gotcha. That sort of thing, like those sort of crossing of words, exists a lot in the painting community because, like, so for instance, I'll just take the local example for me. The painter, if you're watching the live stream, you know who I'm talking about. But if you're watching on YouTube, we have a guy who's an incredible painter in our local area. He's easily the best painter in our area. His name is Matt. And so, like, for some things, like, you should just always pay the best person to do a thing in some instances. But in painting, it's not, at least for miniature painting, it's not always the case. And I'm not talking about just for budgetary reasons. Like, if budget is no option for an electrician, you should just always pay the best electrician. You're never gonna, that's never gonna change anything. But for miniature painting, like, why would anyone ever pay me to paint something for them? They could pay Matt and get an extremely better product. But it sort of just comes down to, and again, assuming budget is no option, because you'd have to pay Matt a lot more, obviously. So that's one of the main reasons. But a lot of it is people can be satisfied with good enough in the miniature painting world. Whereas, like, for an electrician, good enough could work. Good enough could be fine. But good enough could also burn down your house. So, it's a little different. He gets paid something through his live streams. Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. Now that the blue is on, I'm getting a Superman vibe. Yeah, you're not wrong. He's very Superman currently. I'm going to orange up the red a little bit with the dry brush, so that will hopefully change that a little bit. But if not, I'm fine with a Superman dragon. It's not a big deal. Amateur expert. Yeah, I think. No, that's absolutely true. You were an amateur You are an amateur and got my dryer done, and it has not burned down the house yet. So, that is very true. Only shocked myself once, yeah. That sort of came down to, though, it was close to the middle of the night. Or at least it was nighttime. I was 5 states away and didn't want some strange person in the house with just Janet and Lillian. And while you are a strange person, you're not a strange person. So, I actually really like this shiny blue color, but you're right. He's very Superman right now. That's okay. Alright, I'm going to paint the inside of his mouth and his eyes real quick. I'm going to use Black Templar contrast for both of these, because I want them both to be dark. And if he's breathing fire, like dragons like to do, and the inside of his mouth might be a little scorched. So just going to darken that up, and then grab a different brush. I'm going to do his nostrils while I'm here also, just because they've got them modeled there, and may as well. So I'm going to do this whole sort of eye cavity here in this color, and then I'm going to come back in and do the actual like colored part of his eye in yellow. There we go. There's his eyeballs. I'm going to grab, actually I'm going to do them in orange, slightly different. Luganeth? I have no idea. Orange. That's the key. Orange. Just gonna grab some. This is a edge paint, so it's kind of weird sometimes, but should work fine. Just gonna put a little dot in there. This dragon is absolutely wearing a Spidey suit. Yeah. You're not wrong. Alright, then I'm going to grab... I'm going to get him out of the way. I'm going to get this color. What is it? Wild Rider Red. Is it dead? I think Wild Rider Red might be on the dead train. Nope, it's fine. Alright, so Wild Rider Red, sort of an orangey color. And I'm going to get this brush that's been soaking for a little while. I'm just going to do a quick dry brush, and then we'll call it a day. Definitely did not get as much as I was hoping to get done on him. However, sometimes no plan survives contact with the enemy. And this dragon was the enemy today. That's okay. This is not the paint I'm going to use. Started dry brushing and no, not it. Alright, what am I going to use instead? I'm going to use... Actually, I'm going to use this. Scrag Brown. Might not be the most logical of choice, perhaps, but... Lost my dry brush. I'll use this one. I think it'll knock down... Like, right now, he looks a little too red to be natural, really. Like, not a lot of things are this red. So adding some brown to it should help that a little bit. We'll see if this even shows up on this paint. Oh, I think it will. Yeah, this is better. So it's sort of adding this like brown, but sort of like a richness to the red almost, which I think makes it look more natural. I'm just going to come down here. sort of like an overbrush, sort of like a dry brush, somewhere in the middle. Need to get some webs and stuff. Ferraris in their natural state are red. No, you're absolutely right. That is true. So I'm just sort of touching this on the red in places to give it a good once over. There's a lot of touching up that needs to be done on this guy eventually, but not for today. The only thing, the shade of red is Spider-Man. Yeah, instead of dry brushing, I'm damp brushing him. Alright, I'm going to do the wings, just sort of down these grooves here. Same thing on this one. Sort of an orangey sort of a color. Stream is also running over. I want a running over refund. Sure, I'll get right on that. Alright, so there's so much more that could be done, but I think that's going to do it for today. I lied, it's not going to do it for today. I'm going to do one more thing. It might look good, it might completely ruin this dragon. We're going to find out right now. I'm going to take some Retributor armor. Nice gold from Games Workshop. I'll flip my paper towel over here. Get some of this. Alright, here we go. I'm just going to go lightly, very lightly, on the blue, the scales. This video name, I Turn a Dragon into Spider-Man. I think this gold is working out. I think it gives the blue something, so it doesn't look just flat blue. Just having to make sure to go in the right direction so I don't accidentally just wipe a bunch of gold onto his scales. So, but almost done with that. I think we've got almost all of it. Yeah. There we go. Alright, so yeah, I think that gold definitely added something to it. And I think the brown helped the red. There's tons more we could do, but we're already over an hour, as Dylan has reminded us. So, that'll be it for this episode. I'll be back on the main channel on Friday, working on this guy again, doing all the little tiny details that we didn't do last Friday. And then Monday, doing something 40K probably related. And then back here next week, working on some more D&D stuff. Who knows? But yeah, thank you everybody for watching. Episode 51. Hope to see you guys for another 51 more. Maybe 251 more. Who knows? And I will see you guys next time.